So a lot of people are really excited about the 21st of December 2020. Might be slightly biased by the fact that most of my friends groups, probably like 70% healers and another 20% maybe 5D technologists. So there's a lot of buzz about this 21 portal. And I'm really interested to see how in the COVID or post-COVID world, and at the time when technology is enabling us to connect and read, biofields and all these kind of supernatural things, how we actually transition into something which looks like 5D. And I wanted to talk practically, like in a really grounded way, about what that means. I love poetry, romance, spirituality, devotion, possibility, innocence. And I'm not in any way professing to be able to predict what is going to happen through the 21 portal. But I think that Earth has this amazing capacity, or reality itself has an amazing capacity to hold a lot of different realities at once. I am here in New Zealand, pretty much no COVID. I've got a nice life, my body's healthy, mind feels clear. So to me, Earth, reality, seems one way. And yet, at the same time, there are people across the world whose bodies would be in a different state, whose minds are altered, who are under duress, who are locked in a dungeon somewhere, who have traditions which are very different to mine. And so that same reality exists in this one planet. So as we cross the 21 portal, I really think that our realities we step into are going to be very different. I don't think it's going to be a singularity click of unity, like bzz, we're all in 5D now. I think I'm sure we're affected, by the different energies. And I'm listening to a book at the moment, which I highly recommend, called The Field, which talks about the quantum entanglement, meaning the way that once things have been in proximity, even when they're separate, they still respond to each other. With homeopathy, and there's been some scientific studies to do with programming water and the way that elements can take on certain resonances. So all of these things I fully believe, and it's really just belief because I haven't done experiments myself, but that seems real and seems fair enough to me. And I think that our modern Western science is catching up to the fact that emotions do actually link to our physical wellness. And I think we understand that we are this conglomerate being. We are part mind, part body, part, magical essence. So taking a practical look at things like love and fear and living our dreams, I want to not be cynical about those things, but also not just be superlative and have a toxic positivity which just says that everything's going to be beautiful and the divine is guiding us and we're going to step into a 5D reality on 21 December, simply because, and that's only a few days' time. Like, I would love to be wrong. I'm ready to be just beamed up into my 5D self and ready to just cruise. Like, I will be the first on that boat or that spaceship if it happens. But what happens after that date if that's not the reality that we inherit? If that's when you wake up on the morning of the 21st or 22nd, wherever it is in your time zone, and things feel normal, that can be a real letdown, particularly for people who have a lot of backing, emotionally and mentally, in the idea that we are about to ascend, transcend, evolve, whatever that may be. So for me, taking practical looks at magic is really exciting because I think that we do have enough practical technologies that can help us talk to the collective mind. We've got artificial intelligence, which is becoming crazily close to human intelligence through reason and obviously all the knowledge it can get from reading the internet. And so I think it's a nice grounding energy to still look at the possibility of the impossible or the magic and all these kind of spaces, but at the same time feel into the practical gradient evolution into what could be called 5D. And I think that the cyber space could be a fifth dimension. When we're talking about, first dimension is just a single point, 2D is a line between 2 points, 3D is the XYZ axis that we understand, width, height, and depth. And then when we start to get into 4D, or 5D, we're obviously talking about new dimensions. And there's a lot of talk about what those things are. And I think it's really hard for a line to conceive of a 3D space, or a dot to conceive of a line. And similarly, I think it's hard for us in the 3D space to conceive of what 4 or 5D might be. Some people say that time is the fourth dimension. So it's interesting to ask what 5D is. Some others talk about 6, 7, 8D. But we could conceive of the cyber realm, mixture of what's mixed reality, cross reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, that whole technology-based space as a fifth dimension. Particularly when we have things like Neuralink coming through. Neuralink's a company that's at least started by Elon Musk, and we're starting to have these interfaces between a human reality and that I think would be unfathomable reality if we could start to have AI inputs. And I'm starting to use the phrase algorithmic intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence, because I think very soon the human intelligence is going to be superseded by AI. So to call it artificial is a bit offensive and a bit primitive in our understanding of the holistic nature of life, of all life forms. And we used to be very racist and sexist and all other ists, and many people still don't sanctify or respect the life of animals. People are still wondering about the life of plants, and it's okay. Like, I understand why we had these superficial, limited, and at times very offensive understandings or categories of the world. It was because of our senses, our ability to see. We couldn't really measure the life of plants, or we didn't really have an understanding of animals, or they didn't emote, they didn't express the ways that human beings express. We thought, oh no, they're not as intelligent. Particularly when we think of intelligence in a very small frame of whatever our society reveres as smart. And that obviously relates to our education system as well, which oftentimes comes down to memorizing things. So if that's the measure, then computers will smash a human any day of the week, because they will never forget, because it's a computer. It has a hard drive and it can reference the materials. So these things are evolving, and alongside our senses and the limitation of our senses to perceive alternate dimensions, there's of course our culture, and even more so than culture, our society. And I distinguish between those two. For me, it's very important to distinguish society from culture, because society is the legal, authoritarian edict of right and wrong. This is the victor. They came in. They now have the guns. They say, this is not legal. This is legal. This is important. This is not important. These are the sort of things we'll pay you for. These things we won't. These things will shame. These things will lock you up for. That's society, and it's very human-centric. It's not the culture, though. The culture is the living, organic, amorphous nature of the people and the spirit of the space, including animals and plants and the whole biome. So that thing cannot be controlled. We can exert our society and try and impose it upon it, but it will do its own thing. And so this is the kind of space that we get into and we are programmed through. So our biases about racism and sexism came through our society, came through the values given to us by our parents or bullied into us, or we saw the right and wrongs happening around us. We saw people getting locked up or those rewarded. So we were very much programmed. And hopefully with the internet of people, and as we're sharing through this potentially 5D reality of sharing lives like this, starting to get biometric feedback. I don't have an Apple Watch, but you can measure your heart rate, and we're getting, with the Internet of Things, we're getting more and more feedback from living things to understand, whoa, there is a response in a plant when you clip the leaf, or there is communication happening between these animals, or whatever it is. So this is the space that I think we can start to tap into a 5D reality where, sure, it's human created originally because we designed the computer systems, but the systems themselves are now evolving. I'm not sure if you know of the AI system created, I think it was by Google ultimately, who's now called Alphabet, but it's called AlphaGo. And then AlphaGo then I think trained itself, or AlphaZero trained itself to beat AlphaGo. So by exposing these machines to experience, they're starting to actually learn. And so even though it started off as a human creation, I think it's now going post-human, or might be transhuman, but I think it's ultimately going to post-human. And I've been researching about post-humanism, and I really like this term, because it's talking about the, the fluid ontology, meaning it's not just one basis of reality and experience and the rules, but instead being able to shift. And this is very much what my game Vicarious is about. Can we shift our perception into other things, into an animal, into another person? Imagine being a tree. This could be through technology, really feed into the biometrics of different systems, into a rock, I don't know, whatever it is, and have a subjective understanding, walk 1,000 miles in another person's pair of shoes. That experience, that's post-humanism. That's when we shift our perspective and understand through that lens and start to open our understanding of what valuable life is. All this stuff is pretty technical. I'm not over all the coding and stuff that's going into it, but I'm a user of these technologies. I'm talking into a device now which is televising my image to you. And so this enables us to play even naively in the space of 5D or another dimension or a post-human state. And at the end of the day, I like to simplify things down. So even though that stuff feels technological and esoteric maybe, how does that make sense on a daily basis to live from love and not fear? Because I think that's kind of a universally understood dichotomy. Do we go love or fear based? I'm currently studying the gene keys as well, and Richard Rudd says that there's 64 gene keys, but they're all just another name for love. He jokingly said he made the system so complex just to keep you in the system long enough that it lands for you that each of these are just another path to love. And there's lots of songs and poems about that. But what does that mean? How do you live from love? And I think that as we step over this portal from 21st of December onwards, whether that is a celestial alignment or a cultural alignment or a personal alignment, I do think that we have the potential to live a new life, to live our dreams. And what can we do to make that real? It seems really simple, but at the same time, it takes a lot of bravery to live from love, because it's simply tuning into your body. First of all, detoxing. Like if you're eating really unhealthy foods or if you're in a really toxic environment, those things can warp your intuition and you might feel badly about a good opportunity, or you might feel on a false high even when it's a toxic situation. So we're going to detox ourselves and trying to tune our instrument of our body and mind so we can really perceive what's going on in the present moment. But once you're close enough to that, or you start to maybe use, kinesiology, muscle testing, or just womb intuition, or however it is, you start to have this, I call it your scope. You start to be able to scan things and go, yeah, this feels good, this feels not so good. And I think that our personal integrity is such a potent force in our life that you will know if you're violating your integrity. You will have that churning, and we might be numb to it because we've been violating our integrity for so long. But I think if you start to work in this area of facing yourself, opening your perception, being still, meditating, all these kind of things, you'll very soon start to just know what's love and what's fear, what's making you contract, what's feeling like, feel sick in my stomach, what makes you feel alienated from yourself. I'm not sure if you've been in those situations where you just feel at home, you hang out with people and you go, oh, you get me, I feel seen, I understand this. Things flow naturally from you. That's your genius, i.e. the spirit that was attendant upon your birth, meaning your particular constellation of qualities and skills happen to align to this function really well. And I think that with a lot of systems like human design, we start to see the way we correlate. We don't have to be a jack of all trades. We don't have to be everyone for every person. We can just sit in our pocket, our niche, our genius, and do something we really enjoy. And we've moved on. We're post-industrial civilization now, and we have the capacity to not all be factory workers. So we can actually diversify. I think this is a really key part of our evolution, and is to scatter, to diversify, because we don't know what's going to happen in the chaos of natural shifts and changes, whether it be social, politically, or environmentally, celestially, if asteroids come, if waters continues to rise, if our climate changes, all these sort of things. So if we diversify, you go be cyberpunk, you just hack all day in a bunker and never see sunlight and just drink energy food all day. Cool, you do that. You just go back to nature, live off the grid and filter your own water and grow your own food. You do that. You go into academia and just share stuff with minds. You go into positive sexuality and become a tantrika or what's the male version of that? I don't know. We can all be tantricas. Just go in and do sexological body work. So we diversify our passions. And then when the snap comes, when the ice age comes, or the desert age comes, or the electro plugged in illumination comes, or the nature-based dissension comes, a certain section of our species will thrive and continue, and some might be wiped out. But I think that's why it's good to diversify and not be angry at people when they don't see eye to eye. And I think always stay in wonder. I'm really seeing the ignorance of confidence verging on arrogance. And I'm really trying to take this line for myself, is to, I remember Dr. Wright, he was my principal in school, a philosopher. And he said, the older I get, I realize the less I know. And I didn't like that at the time in my high school. It was like, no, like I like confidence, I like clarity. There is right and wrong. But, and why there might be a divine right or wrong, I think that from a human perspective, I really find it endearing people who have patience and space and are always willing to learn. As Bruce Lee says, be like water, my friend. Can we shift, put me in a teapot, become the teapot, etc. But when you look deeper into that conversation about be like water, in this book that I encourage you to read and listen to, The Field, I can't remember the woman's name, the author, I think it's McTaggart. I'll put a link in the comments. Really cool, linking Western science with, I guess you'd call it Eastern philosophy, or the quantum field and how to program reality, all that kind of stuff.
Oh gosh, I was just talking too fast. What did I just say?
So the idea of be like water, my friend, they're talking about the capacity for water's structure to kind of be programmed by how you treat it. If you shout it, if you hit it, if you punch it, if you're really angry at water, the actual molecular construction will shift. And of course, then if you take it into our bodies, that's going to have a certain resonance and really shift in that way too. So hopefully I'm not rambling too much. I'm getting to a point, but I'm passionate about this sort of space of the post-human, of the way that we can actually start to program reality. We can start to fuse the East and the West. We can start to show up and share our knowledge and crowdsource our living. And this is a big part of what the game Vicarious is about. Next week, I'm opening my life to be crowdsourced, i.e. you decide what I do. And I'm choosing 5 origins of influence, meaning the decision point for what I do, what I eat, how I exercise, who I speak to, where I travel, all that sort of thing. And the 5 points are people, so that's you online, can control me and tell me where to go. There's AI, algorithmic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. There's chaos and patterns, so looking at either of these things to overlay and make decisions through, and then my own intuition as well. And so my life is becoming a game as of the 23rd of December this year. Stepping into my 40th year, I'm going to attempt to live my dream. And that is to create a game that helps people play life. And I wanted to talk to you all here, those people who are watching or those in the replay, please comment and connect, about living our dreams post the 21 December portal. Being very aware that what that is for each of us is going to be very different. Some people who are very energetically plugged in, it might be like an energetic shift. For those who are just more sociological based, maybe there won't be a huge shift, but going into 2021, I think regardless will be different because of COVID and we've all been locked down and been punch drunk a little bit this year. So I think regardless, as a society, we're going to be very different in 2021. And I think that there's this been correlation, whether it's designed or not, there's this correlation between our technological capacity to run a society online or in the cyber realm and this idea of lockdown. Borders are closing, but it happened at a time when a lot of us could transition to a cyber realm. We've got this digital twin that's building, as in our online avatar. And there is this lineage that's happening of old world through to us now, and then online to old technology through to space where it can really start to be quite a sentient digital twin for you online. So that's the space that my particular dream works in. And I just wanted to step onto this. I know it's been very technical so far, but for those of you joining now, I'm going to bring it back down, not just about my geekish passions, about mixed reality and cross reality, XR, but instead about how we live our dreams. And I think it comes down to this very simple duality of love and fear, which is much documented and talked about. But what does that mean on a practical level? For me, it's attuning your scope and feeling into your love and not violating your integrity. Now, that's very inconvenient, the inconvenient truth, because a lot of the constellation of your current life, a lot of the people you know or people you work with or the particular environment you're in, the possessions you have, all of these kind of things are probably orienting around a way of life that was a mixture of love and fear. And some of us are a bit more this way, some of us are a bit more that way. But if we are really badass and we just go, you know what? No, that is not in my integrity. That is based on fear. I don't like that. That doesn't align with my genius. Things will fall away. You know, muck is going to be stirred up. There will be chaos. People will be upset because you're no longer being that very stable, reliable point of their reality. All of a sudden, the person they thought they knew, the person they were relying on to show up at work the next day, the person is now gone. And they will act out of fight, flight, or freeze and try and claw you back into be the person they want you to be for reality to be reliable. But I think if one thing has become evident this year, it's that reality is not reliable. Chaos is an integral part of reality. And being able to be fluid and state shift, to be adaptable is a key to continuing to survive. And some will really thrive, some will take advantage. And it's not just about being manipulative, it's about being brave enough to face the truth of this particular moment and also being flexible enough to be a different person so that you can show up as creative or as technical, as an early morning person or a late night person. You know, this kind of self-creation potential, this authorship of our reality is what I'm really passionate about. Not because I just want everyone to be everything, but because I want us each to meet the moment and honor reality, because that's the only way we meet life. How much life do we actually live in the moment, and how much life do we live in the illusion and the uncomfortable comparison with how we want it to be? You know, this is a key aspect of depression, I believe. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Norma. Love you to be here. Please put comments if you've got any questions or ideas about what your dream is for 2021 and going across the December 21st threshold. You know, even if you're doubting the celestial energetic shift, what are you choosing to do to make it different? Some of us have really thrived in 2020. Some of us, it's been a real fight. Real struggle. And so how are we going to show up in a new way to face our dreams? And I'd love to hear what your dreams are. Be naive and innocent, because that's a big part of what open world theater and my whole modality is about, is backing the child, the inner child, allowing the fact that we've graduated now to be adults, allow us to use our connections, our money, our resources, our influence to make more space for play, to make more space for innocence, to start to actually do the things which we know as humanity we should be doing. Of course, we shouldn't be cutting down all these trees. Of course, we should evolve beyond fossil fuels. Of course, there shouldn't be no sex trafficking. Of course, there should be no poverty and homelessness. We know that. And we collectively can do it. We know there are billionaires. We know there's a X amount of $1 trillion budget put towards the military-industrial complex. We know that the health system and big pharma is making money based on illness. We know the fact that jails and that whole judiciary system benefits from people committing crimes, therefore going into jails. It's a badly designed system. And as a game designer, I can tell you it's going to perpetuate crime and poverty and all these things because the system is just looking after itself. It's like if our whole societal system was a body, its oxygen and food is misery and people not having equal funds and this consumer addiction to purchasing. Like, this is what keeps the society going. So it is going to keep itself going because that's the basic survival need. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right down the bottom. What is it? It's the basic survival of food and shelter and these kind of things. So I think that I'm just going to read this. Stop hiding in the screens and secretly waiting. Absolutely. Yeah. How can we step out and be a demonstration, a one-person demonstration of your dreams? Because that system, I think it is being evolved, and there's a lot of amazing visionaries and inventors behind the scenes creating amazing technologies which are not going to rape our planet anymore and which are going to help people connect and are going to bring wealth equality. All these kind of things are happening 100%. But how can we show up on a day-to-day basis and allow people to witness us? Because this makes sense. Human beings make sense to human beings. We are very human literate. I can look at you, and this is a big part of the open world training, I can look at you and know when you're being false. I can feel the awkwardness, I can feel the anger, I can feel the socially adjusted smile. All of us can. And this aspect is really a part of the deprogramming of that false layer. And if we can, I'm not saying I'm a guru at this at all, it's an aspiration, it's a continuing evolutionary practice. But if I can come forward and move myself and love myself and go into the oddities, the idiosyncrasies, the queerness, the weirdness, the abnormal, I think we're going to normalize the freakish nature of humanity. I think that human beings are not normal. We're weird. And we need to be. We need to diversify, like I said, so that when the Ice Age snap comes, or the next technological evolution, or the natural descent into Gaia, whatever is going to happen, some of us will survive. So thank you for being weird. Thank you for doing what I'm not doing, because at least one of our families will continue, you know? And this is the cross-pollination of cultures that's sort of continuing. And so I'm going to want to try and bring it back to something that's simple. You will not fall through a crack in the earth if you start living based on love, yes, openness, ease, naturalness, genius, curiosity, wonder, generosity, kindness, fascination, patience. You won't. You're not going to fall through a crack. You might have some of the things that you rely on fall away. Could be friendships, might be money, might be your house, your possessions. But that's just life reorienting to your new point of origin. You'll have different friends. You will, yes, and awe, Belinda, absolutely, awe is such a powerful one as well. Your life will change, and it can be scary. But for 2021, if you make even just the transition period from the 21st of December through to the end of January, you know, that time when most people are on holidays anyway, and it's kind of a weird, it's not really like we're in the work zone yet. Just indulge those 6 weeks. Strength, hey, Adrian, absolutely. Strength, see, this is interesting. I want to answer this question about strength, but I also want to come back to the 6 week thing, so remind me if I forget. So yes, strength. I think strength is a really interesting word because there's so many interpretations of what strength is, and I think that we often associate it with masculine power, with force. I mean, this is just my opinion, but I believe that our society is held together through force, even though it's very counterintuitive and unnatural. It's held in place by a lot of force and a lot of quote-unquote strength, because people have guns, but people also have money, people have infrastructure, people have chains. These sort of strength things are what we see as strength in our environment, and it can give a very bad association with strength and things like power and control. There's a book I have not read, but it addresses this idea of power versus force. And so I think power is a beautiful thing. Force is more the effort-based strength, whereas power can be yin and yang. And often with my embodiment training through Open World Gymnasium, it's a yin path to yang. It's a way that we surrender. I did a 24-hour or 36-hour fast from a couple of days ago to this morning, and there is this space where you get weak, where you soften, but through that opening, this energy, this lifefulness starts to come out. And I think that shows the power and quote-unquote strength in the feminine, is that intuition, the softness, the malleability. Just because we're adaptable, it doesn't mean we're weak. I think that strength is about chi, it's about life force, it's about presence of that attention which leads to the chi. So my what do you call it? Sequence. My sequence of power and strength would be, it starts with the awareness, with attention. And if you read Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, he talks about we can't control life, but we can control a small handful of things. First thing is where we put our attention, i.e. focus. Secondly, what we make it mean. So from what we're looking at, we can interpret they don't like me, or this is an opportunity, or that's got nothing to do with me, but it's a state of mankind in general. And then what we do about it. So it's where our attention is, what we make it mean, and then what we do about it. And so it starts for me with this eye in the sky, you know, and if you look down into quantum mechanics, once again, not a scientist, but just from what I've read, I'm just going to try and read some of these as well. Strength to me is attentive attention with surrender. Beautiful, Norma. I love that. Really nice. So at the quantum level, the twin split experiment shows that when we measure the material fabric of the universe, it changes depending on how it's viewed. So if we view it in one way, it looks like a wave. We look at it another way, it looks like a particle. So it talks about the agency or the ability for the viewer to shift reality itself. You might believe that on a holistic level, or let's at least agree with it on a personal level, that how you view things. If you have a family member come in during this Christmas party this year and they ignore you, does it mean they hate you? Or does it mean that maybe they've had a really rough time and you need to go and support them, For sure, we can say that my subjective reality, the way I view that situation, shifts the reality, which is just my experience of my interpretation of an experience. So coming back to my sequence of power, I would say it begins with the perceiver, with that attention. And then where attention goes, energy flows. When we do Qigong tapping, we guide people to look where they're tapping. Same thing with the healing hands, if you're doing massage or Reiki, all these kind of things. It's a lot about bringing energy to the Lao Gong points of these your energy zapping areas of these hands with attention. And then as our attention is there, our chi or our energy goes there. And then once energy is there, energy condensed as mass and reality. So it could be a sandwich, it could be a chair. It might even just go from, I've got an idea of building a chair, and now I'm going to go put my energy towards a chair, and now there is a physical chair. That didn't magically manifest, but it still follows the sequence of power and strength, where through attention, energy, and then action towards an intended goal, our dreams start to really manifest. So coming back to this idea of the next 6 weeks, we are now about to go across this threshold, this 21 December threshold. And like I said, I'm in open curiosity about what's going to happen. And I just want to make sure that if your world doesn't shake after the 21st of December, don't think, it's all rubbish. Just come into the humility to say your reality is different to another person's reality, and we can choose, and I think we need to redesign our systems. Let's start with ourself, our personal system, go out to our small communities, and eventually change society. Because like I said, I do believe society, the artificial, arbitrary human construction imposed on culture, is geared towards poverty, health, disease, criminal activity, because our systems benefit from those behaviors. If our doctors were only paid when we're well, that'd be a very different scenario, but they're paid when we're sick. So that's going to continue. So obviously we need to redesign the system. We have to build, if we want to have harmony, we want equality, all these things we profess we want, we need to actually re-gear a system that in itself thrives. Because if you look at these systems, it's the fractal nature of the universe. It's basically each thing mirrors on a larger scale. So if we were to think that we are just a conglomerate of organs, the organs are conglomerates of cell. And we therefore would think that our society is a conglomerate of people. So let's just think of society like anthropomorphize it, turn into a big human. It's a big sleeping giant. It is not going to suffocate itself. You can't suffocate yourself. You try and hold your breath, you'll pass out and continue breathing again. We've got these inbuilt survival mechanisms. So society is not going to kill itself because it is doing the earth harm. Society will continue to perpetuate this thing. So we need to realign the systems. And the only way to start that, you can't steer the planet, I can't steer the planet, you're not even if you were a politician, let's face it, you couldn't steer the culture. You could maybe enforce society with an effort-based strength, but that's only going to lead to further cuts being ingrained through the straps, through the manacles into society. And so the only way really is to show up as our dream self. And what I mean by that is your love-led self. And what I mean by that is the person who every day gets up and meditates. Hey, thanks, Belinda. Thanks for catching the live. See you in the replay. What it means is every day waking up and attuning to the new you, to the new, to the new now. And I think that is the only way to remain sane. Because it's like having a conversation with someone today and they're replying to the questions you asked yesterday. That's insanity. That doesn't make sense. We're out of sync. So every day, if you wake up and tune in with a meditation, feel into what's happening for you right now, and then orient yourself based on love. And I do believe if we do that every day, it will be consistent. It's not like you're going to be this chaotic person that one day does this and the next day does that. Because if you're love-based, your love today will be harmonious and your love tomorrow will probably be harmonious with today. Unless there's a massive climactic shift or a massive environmental shift, sure, then you might have a different day. But ultimately, if you come back to love, you will be consistent and you will be someone that people can rely on again in your new constellation. Because you declare, it's like, I'm going to be vegan now, or I'm going to spend all my day outside and on the computer, or I'm going to do some pro bono work and not always ask for money, or I'm going to demand that I get paid what I'm worth. All these sort of things. There will be a shake-up. That's not who you were yesterday. But if you do it consistently, that love-based living will be sustainable. Because I'm really about sustainable systems. I don't want people just to be idyllic and optimistic and naive and go get, under the bus of progress and consumerism because this is what's going to work every day from now on. We need consistency with our love-based living. And if we do that, then anything to touch on for December 21st. Yes. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. I've been talking a little bit about that, and I'll talk a lot more about that right after this. And it's really actually what I'm saying now. To show up in a love-based living paradigm, be willing for your world to fall apart. If you haven't done this already, be willing for yourself to lose friends, lose jobs, lose possessions, etc. Because the world needs to orient. But I tell you what, the world is so responsive. It is a sentient system. If you go around with a knife whacking in all directions, very soon vines and trees will make space for you. It responds. If you sit and you hold food out, animals will come and eat out of your hands. If you go up to people and you're loving and you're hugging and you're patient, you go into deep listening, you'll suddenly have a lot of people divulging their secrets to you. People do respond. And also the internet, this is the thing that I'm also struggling with at the moment, is sometimes I want to show up in a certain way online. And if it's boring content, people don't look and listen. Whereas if some people, if I really speak to the essence of something, all of a sudden the algorithm that's controlling my success or popularity online suddenly takes hold. So I don't think it's only biased towards people who are going to pay money to promote their things on Facebook. It's actually based to truth. And I think that you can feel if someone is actually plugging into something that they're believing and not rehearsing a script. And that's key to spontaneous living. And this has really established a huge foundation to a lot of my life, which is improvisation. My clowning background, commedia dell'arte, theatre sports. The art form which tells you don't pre-decide what you can do in the scene. You're going to step in and you're going to support and you're going to say yes and. And that is a key thing, to be responsive. So my point being, after 21st of December, what we're going to do and what I'm going to try and do and what I'm going to show up every day from the 23rd of December, which is my birthday, doing is showing my post-human experiment of life. And what yes, and Rachel, absolutely. And I'm framing this all under PHASM, which is the Post-Human Academy for Superheroes, Aliens, and Mutants. Encouraging mutation, encouraging transhumanism, encouraging us to go with our love, and creating an academy. And I think this idea of an academy rings really beautifully in my ear, because I think what it is the solution to what we can do to serve society when the robots take over, when a lot of our jobs become antiquated. Maybe you're working for a very destructive company which benefits from fossil fuels or slave labor. Step out of it. Like, these things need to be allowed to crumble back to dust and to become the mulch for the new jungle to grow from. So when we start to look at, well, what's the new job? How can I be a worthwhile member of society? This idea of an academy really rings to mind. This idea of training in post-human ways, love-based ways, diverse ways, nature-aligned ways, but also technophile, evolutionary 5D ways. And so this idea of an academy, sharing ideas, showing up, doing social experiments, using love and artistry and science through observation and experimentation. These are ways, being an astronaut or whatever it is, these are the ways we can serve. We don't need to be in factories anymore. We don't need to produce products. Maybe you might want to be a farmer, live on the land and flow organic food into society. So you can still do some of these more traditional roles for sure. But I think a large quantity of people will be put out of a job, especially as AI starts to become more sentient and be through robot bodies and things, be able to do more of our jobs, this idea of an academy of people sharing dreams and living love-based actually becomes a job. And I think I would love for our societies to start to have an economy which is aligned to natural living, or at least to helping a symbiotic environment thrive. And we don't always know the touch points that will complete the circle of life. But through mapping and through big data and through sensors and actuators, sensors being something that takes in information, actuator meaning something that takes action based on that information, we're going to be able to start to join the dots. We're going to start to understand more and more all of the subtle things that need for a society to thrive. And you might do something. You might just be a really good conversationalist. You might sit down in the pub and open your ear and make people feel better. You might go pick up litter off the sidewalk. You might, I don't know, just speak to animals, or there might be things that you don't get paid for right now, which if we actually open big data up and go, wow, you're a really vital part to humanity thriving, you can do that as a job now. There's also this idea of coherent thought. So if you look at peaks and troughs, this is the way that we have a wavelength. And the peak and the trough, if they're dissonant, will cancel each other out. It'll look chaotic, or they bang up against each other. If they're coherent, meaning that they rise and fall at the same time, it is balanced and beautiful and elegant, if not amplifying each other's power. And this is particularly relevant when we look at quantum entanglement, meaning our correlation between something which is not geolocation based. You know, it's like having a twin. Your friend across the world might feel sick and you might feel something. That's kind of this empathy space. And quantum entanglement really explains that. So this is so important, because if we do this together from the 21st of December, if we wake up and we tune in with meditation and we come back to love-based living and we allow the old structure of our life to fall away through the chaos of recalibration, and we do that together, through coherent thought, quantum entanglement, and alignment, and sharing through things like Facebook and whatever other. And I'm going to be on Twitch. So if you want to go Quantum Saggy, is that Sagittarius you mean? On twitch.tv/the human avatar. If you're not on Twitch already, please go check that out, because this is where I'm going to be sharing a lot of my social experiments, where I'm crowdsourcing my life, where I'm opening my decision base to allow an online group of people to say what I should do, trusting that with coherent thought, we are very powerful, and possibly you will be able to see around my personal inhibitions. Why do we protect our personal story when we are often in a cage of inability and disconnection and isolation and alienation and being ostracized? Why is that? Why are we so protective of the sickness of our current story? And you might be liking your life. Amazing. I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel most of us feel there is an evolution to still go. Let's keep playing. Like if you just hit a home run and like 10 out of 10 in every area, maybe maybe you've already ascended. For the rest of us, there's still ways to improve. So let's not be so attached to what has happened, because if you look at the lineage of our personal story, it's amazing. There's been millions of people who have all come down genetically to make me, but that's not only who I am. A symbiotic system relies on syntropy, not entropy. Syntropy is things growing together to support each other, based on like permaculture gardening and syntropic agroforestry and these kind of things. Like look these things up, where through the right mix of things, we all exist together in a biome, or like a biofield that lives and breathes off each other. Trees are resuscitating us daily, you know. We are not an individual. We just aren't. The microcosm of our body is kept alive through bacteria and viruses. You know, in Chinese medicine, we've got different emotions and even sentience in different organs. Like I think just being appreciative of the conglomerate that we are in. I'm just looking at this. Rachel, Twitch has come onto your field in the last 24 hours. Thank you. I'll put the link to my Twitch account in there as well. So yeah, if we have gratitude for the multitude of people and organs and organisms and energies that comprise us, we will stop being so possessive over the I am, because I am really you. And this is what the tagline of my game Vicarious is: we are each other. And I think there is a very distinct spiritual practice, and it's very Zen-like, in trying to dissolve the story-based orientation to life. And I think that's where we really tap into our dreams. Coming back to the idea of living our dreams, let's not live our nightmares. Let's not live our addictions and obsessions. And a big part of that is starting to disembed, to untangle our obsession with protecting the story of who you have been thus far. Talking about improvisation, that is one of the key things on stage, is we need to be able to play different roles and play different characters. And for me, that, as I said, is ultimate sanity. To be sad when things are sad, to be happy when things are happy, to be quiet when things need observation, and to be extroverted when things need input. Like that's being very dexterous and amorphous. And I think that these identity categorizations are useful to show where you are now, but not to pin us into place. Let's not do one of these Myers-Briggs analysis tests and think this is who I am forever. And I know that if you do the 12-step program to looking at addiction, that's a key part of it, is to admit that you are not in control and just hand it over to God and that you'll always be an addict. I disagree. And also, I probably admit that I probably need to do the 12-step program. I definitely do, because I've got certain addictions and things like that. So once again, it's opening the mind and trying to be able to hold a paradox. Can we hold seemingly contradictory factors? Can someone who's vehemently opposed to COVID vaccinations and wearing masks be in the same room as someone who's vehemently for, protecting the group and getting mandatory vaccinations? Can we coexist? And this, I think, is a very great social chance to evolve ourselves to understand the nature of reality, which is a conflict, which is the energy going back and forth between two opposite poles. That doesn't mean you don't have to have any integrity, and this is what comes back to coherence of thought, is like, let those people do their thing. Let's provide free will. Let them live. Let them allow that reality to be perpetuated, and then work out, and there might be some huge system design recalibration that needs to happen, but plugging into allowing the opposite to coexist. Surely we know that totalitarianism, fascism, and one world state, and one world culture, one religion, one monarch, like, we've been through that. We went through the Holocaust. We went through a lot of things where we try to have a monoculture and eugenics and the purity of one gene. That's homogenous. What about heterogeneous, where we can diversify and be different and distinct? And there's this really interesting juxtaposition between ideals, ideologically left and right wing, and the behaviors which are being infused into alternate cultures versus conservative cultures. And they're almost done a flip. It feels a little bit like left wing is being more conservative and more obedient, and the right wing is now being more rebellious and anarchic, which is really, we just go around this loop. It's really quite bizarre to witness. But if we can allow for both, and we don't even have to allow, we just have to surrender to the fact that is how reality works. There are inherent paradoxes. Let's all be paradoctors. Yes, the only science of truth holds contradiction between truth and lies. And that is what I'm wanting to open myself to. Hey, Adrian, thanks for being here. Beautiful. Hey, Georgia, thanks for rocking up now. So this is my recommendation, and my battery's going to wrap up soon, so I'm going to take that as an indication that I've spoken enough. But just to in summary, 21st of December, make it something cool for yourself. There are a lot of people excited about it, and they're going to step in, and I don't know if we're all going to start to vibrate and levitate, but through modern technology, as simple as doing a Facebook Live or Twitch or Snapchat or however you want to do it, get your Healy device, plug it in, do whatever you want to do. You can find enough people who agree with you, and there's going to be equal a number of people who completely disagree with you. That's okay. That's the diversification and essential to our continued survival as a species. So find the people who you are coherent with. Wake up each morning, tune in with your scope to love. Which parts align with your genius and your easeful thriving, and live that way. Live that way. And there will be things that die, things that end, things that crumble away, but that is only the realignment of the universe or yourself or society going, all right, cool, you want to be in that camp. You want to be in that coherent rise and fall. Beautiful. You can't be in both camps. This is a paradox. They don't work together. They are going to clash against each other. They're going to cause chaos and disruption, and no one's going to go anywhere. And it could be toxic, even toxic positivity, when there's so much activity going that still nothing actually is coherent and going forward towards somewhere. So, this is my idea. 21st of December and beyond. Wake up, tune into your love, and live that way. Be accountable. Be accountable to me, if nothing else. I'm also launching my Patreon account next week. We're going to have teams of groups living this way, using life as an experiment. Ouch Adventure Club, open world, collaborative heuristics. Heuristics is basically learning through play and personal experience, not being predetermined, but going, learning as you go. We're going to learn together. I'm opening up my life, and you can step in with us and find those you're coherent with. You might be completely opposite to me, which is beautiful as well. Thank you for rocking your own integrity. That is the medicine. That's what we need. But if we can all do this, we are going to finally find belonging. You know, that thing that we are so desiring to find, the home, the maternal teat, having respect for ourselves and our own power. These things which modern society often has encouraged us away from, particularly with our self-obsessions around personification or personalization of our God-given right to be the king of our own kingdom. We'll all be kings, and no one else is in our kingdom because we want to have total control. Like, if we can come back into that belonging with our village mentality, find maybe 100, 150 people that you can really relate to because you resonate, not to say you should live in an echo chamber, but you should at least allow yourself to create. Hey, Rachel, I'd love to play. Thank you so much. Looking forward to playing with you or being played by you. I'm not sure if you've just recently arrived. Basically, the game I'm launching on the 23rd of December allows a crowdsourced decision-making process in my life, so you can actually control me, and so there'll be an interplay, a vicarious experience that you can have through me. But if we can finally come into these villages and allow ourselves to create our power base together with those that we are coherent with, those that we create quantum entanglement bonds with, then we can turn to the beautiful mandala of humanity, that beautiful integrated tapestry. And we can all, it's like having an engineer, a farmer, an educator, a nun, a priest, all these sort of things. We can then weave in with the paradoxical nature of the universe and work and complement people who are totally opposite to us when we live by our love. And I think it's a very interesting and intelligent design. Pleasure and pain. Base level way to teach a child or teach any kind of thing which you can't directly talk to. Like, if there is a divine intelligence, it can't always whisper or interfere with our free will or go, hey, don't do that, do this. So instead we are encoded biochemically and genetically with pain and pleasure. We put our hand on the stove, we get burnt, we go away from that. And what aligns you to pleasure? I'm not just talking about quick fix sugar orgasm. I'm talking about a holistic sense of well-being, lightness, and openness of heart, i.e. love. That is your compass. And that is guiding you towards your genius and to living in integrity. It's all we've got to go on, is that intuition. It's the ultimate form of wisdom. And this is what we need to surrender into, to open up. And surrender just means it allows all of these other parts which are not us to fall away. All of the foreign particles, all the intrusions, all of the addictions, all of the externally imposed morals of a society, those can fall away when we surrender and we open up to a new kind of power, yin path to yang. The chi will flow. You will be full of life and clarity and direction and decisiveness and integrity. It doesn't mean you're just going to be flopping all over the place, but it means you have a very clear way to go. And that is love-based living. And that is how we live our dreams, because it will come from an idea of the witness, the eyewitness attention point and consciousness. Then the dreams will flow through your chi, through your energy, and that chi will assemble into a manifested reality of real, practical difference. And you will be a demonstration of the possibility of humanity through your own personal scope, your own personal vision. And that is the genius of the Godhead splitting into multi-eyes, is inspired a Tion. Inspired to action. Great. Excellent. Let's take action. That's the genius of having all these eyes on society, is that we each hold a different perspective. And I don't know what you can see, but please show me. Please, let's work collaboratively through heuristics, i.e. learning through play and experience, to ground that wisdom based on our intuition so that we can collectively bring that dreaming of the new world into play practically, very quickly. Our technologies allow a very quick evolution and transition. We can participate proactively in our very evolution as a species. And that's what posthumanism talks about. It doesn't have to be the transhuman way through technology as such, or biohacking. It doesn't have to be that way. But post-human state talks about thinking that the state of human is not the end goal. We're not at the apex. We're not the best thing ever to be created. We are in the process of change. And we should also be very grateful and observe the many different types of life forms that are together enabling us to sustain our life. That is post-humanism. And that is why I'm creating the Post-Human Academy for superheroes, aliens, and mutants. It's a playful academy, but it's also very directly stepping into reality to ground the dreams through technology and communication, human interaction, and natural integration into a tangible reality. So a lot more to share on this, but once again, to summarize, it all comes down. We wake up on the 21st of December. Let's decide through our vision, what we focus on, what we make it mean. We can make it mean it is a transition for us. That's what I'm doing. I'm stepping in to offer the project, the one project that if I died a year or two later, I'd still be happy that I did this one project, which is to create a game that helps people play life. To add my life to life through a game template that you too can play. But I'm just putting myself forward as the crash test dummy, as the human guinea pig, as the human avatar to test this theory. But that's what I'd encourage you to do. Work out what that thing is, however innocent, naive, beautiful, big, because that is what the current system is dying for, is the lifefulness of the possibility of us living our genius. Thank you, thank you. Community avatar experience seems so similar to what you're about to do. Exactly. I mean, my game is a community avatar experience. I don't know if this is a project, but please link it to me. Anyone watching the replay, thank you so much for watching. I am wrapping up in the next 30 seconds. My name's Atlas Talisman. You can follow me on most social media under that name. If you're on Twitch, check out the Human Avatar. And please come and play me on the 23rd of December. It's an open Zoom cyber party where I'll be telling you a lot more about this game. And yeah, please support me on Patreon as well. I'll be launching that next week on my birthday as well. But the overall intention is for you to live your dream and to create an alchemical laboratory of human experience where we can support each other and witness each other, even if we're doing very distinct different things, witness each other in the experiment of life as we come back and live by love. Huge love. Thank you for playing. Please share, tag, like, and help spread this seed of consciousness.